office of Roden and Company. Please leave your message after the tone.
Hey, it's about your order. That fertilizer you're after. I've been told it'll be coming over before too long. I'm sorry to say that the price of the goods have increased since our last sale. Give us a ring about it, would you? I'm sorry to say that the price of the goods have increased since our last sale. Give us a ring about it, would you?
Victor, this is Charlie. Blue Saloon. Registration number Juliet India Alpha 8024. Pulling a trailer, heading north on the Derry McCash Road.
Turn around. Victor 3, breaking.
Two, taking it.
This is Golf Operations. Go ahead, Logan 3.
Golf 117, roger, it's yourself.
Approaching Derry McCash.
Calling uniform. Request code 2 to 6 on green Bedford van, registration number Hotel India Juliet 8206. Anything known? Over.
Victor 4, this is uniform. Last known owner is Seamus Cole of Lurgan. List of Republican connections. Over.
Roger.
Zero Victor, this is Victor 3. The vehicle has come to a stop outside some kind of farm building off Ballinary Road North. It's open ground. Not very promising. Over.
Time to report possessions and return to headquarters. We'll take a little squint at it tonight. Here we go.
Looks like homemade explosives.
How much then?
Oh, enough.
Eighteen, 19, 21, 23.
Well, anything?
Just had a call from the cabin, sir. Not happy with the signal from the device.
Get us sorted. The minute anybody even thinks of shifting that stuff, I want to know about it.
Any action?
Have a guess.
Will you look here? Some bugger stole the battery.
Romeo 3, this is Zero Romeo.
Romeo 3.
Report of a stolen dumper truck battery at the building site on the Kennego embankment. Check it out.
Romeo 3. Sarge, don't Special Branch have a ban on Kennego?
Just hang on, 5.
Our guest today needs no introduction from me. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome the Chief Constable of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, Sir John Herman.
Romeo 3, Zero Romeo.
Romeo 3, Sarge.
It's your lucky day. The branch have issued a special dispensation. You're to proceed to Kennego.
On our way.
Great. For there are no words of advice that I can give to you, young and old alike, that could better those of St. Paul in his epistle to the Philippians, in which he said, "Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." Let us pray. Go forth into the world in peace. Hold fast that which is good. Render to no man evil for evil. Love and serve the Lord. And may the peace of God, which passes all understanding, fill your hearts and minds, now and forever. Amen.
Any comments, Sir John?
This fills me with sadness and horror. I'm satisfied. It is the intent of the terrorists to continue in this vein, but they will be prevented from doing so. These men were responding to a normal call for assistance from a member of the public. If this community does not recognize the malignancy within it and vomit it out of its system, there can be no future for us.
The Assistant Chief Constable is here, sir.
Right.
I trust it's not you we have to thank for this balls up, Flanagan.
Sir?
Those explosives down the road, under your surveillance.
No, sir.
Can you assure me of that?
It's all still in the hay shed, sir.
Bloody better had be. Or there'll be trouble. Confirm that.
Yes, sir. Tell Desi to get on to his tight. I want to know how those explosives got out of there. Tell him I want some names on this one.
Of you, you, and you. That's it, you. Come on, no, right. Get in. Off me!
You certainly went to a lot of trouble.
Partly you're worth it.
I'm glad I'm in demand.
You've got some explaining to do, sunshine. Just a few details we need to clear up is all.
Aye, well, I'm here, am I not?
So, how come, despite our best efforts, the merchandise goes walkabout?
Well, you're gonna have to ask MI5 about that one.
We want some bloody names of you.
Look, I'm not doing it for my health, you know. This one's gonna cost you.
I thought it bloody might.
Now, let's say I give you what you want. 5 grand. It's me's on the firing line here.
Maybe we could run to 2.5.
You know, yous are really in the shade here. And I don't see that you're in any state to frig around.
All right. 5.
Now, listen hard. I'm just gonna say it once. Point taken, sir. But our touts informed us that they're going after a reservist. It's quite clear the right bodies are involved, sir.
Well, this time make sure you connect with them before they get to the reservist. Can't afford another cock-up.
We'll be waiting for them, sir.
That'll be the phone. Don't move. Hello?
Mom, it's Melvin. I'm wearing it now. It's great.
And what do you think of the turtleneck? I'm making one for your father, but, I don't think he's got the neck for it.
The neck's fine.
And the colour?
Camel. I like camel.
It's taupe. They call it taupe.
Okay, so I like taupe.
But you'd have preferred the camel.
Mom, I love it. It's terrific.
Melvin, what about the motif? You've got to have a motif. You ask your Anthony, he's with it.
It's so fine. I love it. I'm ecstatic. I'm over the moon.
So you like it? You're pleased? Oh, good. Bye-bye. He doesn't like it.
Phone to say thank you. It's always appreciated.
He will like it. It'll grow on him. When he gets the matching socks, he'll love it. The whole ensemble.
British Telecom. It's you we answer to.
Since the dawn of time, man and dog have been partners. Over the centuries, this partnership has evolved into a warm, understanding relationship. For years, PAL has understood the nature of this partnership. That's how today, PAL is able to bring you new PAL Partners. PAL Partners is a new dog food, and it looks great. You'll want to give your dog new PAL Partners because partners understand each other.
G'day. Good morning, sir. How's the hiking?
Where's your Snickers?
I'm sure it does, sir. They look most uncomfortable.
In the spirit of international understanding, Marathon has changed its name to Snickers. It's still packed with peanuts and still covered with the smoothest milk chocolate. But now, for Marathon, say Snickers.
Ruth, do you know they ain't got no Snickers? You have it, mate, and I'll play it.
Snickers. All that's changed is the name.
This week in the Sun, a 16-page World Cup pullout, an essential TV guide, plus Lineker, Gascoigne and Barnes, and the once-to-watch Trevor Francis on the danger men of the World Cup. The complete lowdown on the teams facing Bobby's boys only in the Sun, plus 2 World Cup medals, 24 World Cup stamps, and this striking World Cup wall shot, all absolutely free. And play new Golden Goaler. Get your free game card with a unique lucky number. Fantastic prizes must be won only in your top-scoring Sun.
All over Britain, something strange and wonderful is happening. From far above the planet, BSB is beaming down its 5 themed channels. There's sport, movies, arts, comedy, and music. British television will never be the same again. The trouble is, if you're not connected, you won't even know it's there.
Here is a double bedroom area with twin access doors. And here is the kitchen area. Now, your target can be in any one of these areas.
All right. 1. Don't stop to think about it. Take out the terrorists before they can take out the hostages. 2. No warnings. When did you see the IRA hold up a yellow card? 3. Go for the trunk. Double tap. Your aim is to eliminate the threat completely. Now take those bastards out of action. Firepower, speed, and aggression. Robinson, get in there.
Well done, Constable Robinson. You've just topped the ratepayer.
Did you see him? That's your man. All right. Patrick will be scouting for you. And I'll get Jervis McCare to do a stint at the way. You all right, lads? I have to scout.
It's for you, Jeremy. Sure you're all right
Right. Eugene Tolman, Sean Burns, Martin Macaulay. These two are well known to us. They both received suspended sentences last year. Eugene for hijacking, Burns for making petrol bombs. Tolman's a plasterer, Burns a painter, when they bother to work. Both 21, both from Lurgan. Martin Macaulay. Unemployed, 19 years old, from Lurgan. No form. But he did an electronics course at Neg School, so he's likely the explosives officer. All three have been named by an impeccable source as the perpetrators of the Kinnago explosion. Treat them as armed and dangerous at all times.
Attention! Married with 3 children. Father of 2 little girls. That picture was taken at his wedding 3 weeks ago. Now you know why you're here. All right, at ease. Sit yourselves down. A source has told us that an armed service unit of the Provisional IRA is about to make a hit on an as yet unnamed RUC reservist in the Portadown area. Tolman, Burns, and Macaulay. These boys are members of that unit. The intelligence on this one is first rate. When you get the word from E4A, I want a vehicle control point set up, and I want these men stopped. No mistakes.
Remember, firepower, speed, aggression.
Show me what you've learned.
Roger. Tolman and Burns are now assembled in the house, sir.
They're moving around in there. They could be getting ready to go.
Then again, they could be doing the yogi kogi.
There's another fella in there with them. No, I just can't make him out.
Sort this.
Sierra 3, this is 0 Victor.
Sierra 3 receiving you. Over.
All units return to HQ. Surveillance resumes 0700 hours.
Now you're talking.
Victor 1, this is 0 Victor. Return to base. Surveillance resumes 0700.
Pissing hot.
It's got to be tonight. What's their bastard game?
All right, home James through the park.
Hold on. This is our operation. I'm going to give it one more pass. Pick me up round the back.
Back here, for God's sake. It's on. It's on.
Get back there. All of you. Get back.
Sweet Jesus.
Come on. Couldn't be better off where we were.
What about the weapons?
They seem to have been unarmed, sir.
And who the bloody hell is this?
We believe his name's McCare, sir.
Where's Macaulay?
He wasn't involved, sir. CID, sir.
Right.
Well, you picked a fine night for it.
Gives a few minutes. Get the lie of the land.
It's mine now, Sammy.
Get yourself a taste of tea. Get out of this weather.
Can I at least talk to some of your lads?
Afraid not, Jimmy, sorry. I sent them home. I shunt them along tomorrow, all right?
This came from golf, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, lads, set yourselves down.
Make sure you stress one of ours was injured.
It's crucial that what you put out gives no hint of prior intelligence. It was a routine roadblock, one of hundreds mounted in the province. Our prime concern must be the protection of the source.
Yes, sir. So you know what you have to do now, McGuckin?
Aye. Right, Sergeant. From the point you first made contact with the target.
We proceeded at speed in pursuit of the green Ford Escort and opened fire.
You returned fire. Believing yourselves to be under attack, you saw flashes from the car. You assumed they were gunshots.
We saw their back window smashed, sir.
Good. Good point. So you returned their fire.
We did it at that, sir. Aye.
in self-defense.
Hello, Davy. How's McGuckin? I've got a wee scoop for you. Aye. Well, hold the front page.
Right, from the top. The escort broke through the vehicle control point here, and you were knocked down, right?
Yes, sir.
So, off you go. You're on the sick.
3 members of the Provisional IRA were killed and an RUC officer injured when a car failed to stop at a routine vehicle control point near Lurgan tonight. It is believed that all 3 men sustained gunshot wounds. I'll have a more detailed statement for you in the morning.
We gave chase after we saw the escort break through the VCP. After they'd knocked down the constable.
At what point did you open fire?
During the chase, sir. In self-defense.
What prompted that?
We saw a number of flashes coming from the back of the car. Their back window shattered.
Did you actually see anyone fire?
To be honest, sir, it all happened so fast.
So, you had no reason to suppose they were unarmed?
Not at all, sir. Why would they have broken through the checkpoint? Unless they were up to no good.
What weapon had you been issued with?
A Ruger 223.
And did you discharge it at all after you came to a stop?
Sorry, sir.
Did you fire after your car come to a stop?
No, sir.
After you got out of the car?
No, sir. Definitely not, sir.
This is the empty office of Roden and Company. Please leave your message after the tone.
We're expecting another sample of the goods you were inquiring after. Same warehouse as before.
Stay.
Right you.
Right you.
Who are you then?
Michael. Michael Ty.
All right.
I've come to feed the dogs. I said to Kitty I'd look out for them while she was away, like.
All right, she mentioned it. She told me to put my hand, you know, out of the weather.
She never said.
Oh, is that right?
have located Macaulay. He's leaving Lurgan on the Lisburn Road. Over.
Hey, Michael. Martin. So what's up? You know, nothing much. You coming for a ride? I have to feed Kitty's dogs.
You seen them on the way back. Come on with you.
Blow the cobwebs off you so it will. Come on.
Zero Victor, Victor 2.
Michael, would you come and take a look at this? Hang on there, Martin.
I've got something for you here.
Is it, Martin? Jesus. These are antique at the Easter Rising.
I reckon that's your Martin Macaulay.
Macaulay's connected with the rifles, sir.
Clear the barn.
Drop your weapon. Right. Right. Where the fuck is the rest of the gear? I'm hit. Help me!
Okay, okay.
Come on. Come on.
bastard off, eh?
Don't worry, man. It's too open.
Ask him about the explosives.
Right you are, sir. Where's the explosives, Macaulay?
I can't find any ammo, Sarge.
What a bloody cock-up. Get an ambulance.
Tonight we have a geography class. That's an O and A level geography class. We have a typing class. RSA, stages 1 and 2. We have a dressmaking class and a demonstration cookery class where the students aren't involved. The teacher demonstrates to the students.
Hey, what are you after?
Michael! Where's my Michael?
Aye, well, he's in big trouble, you're Michael.
What's happened? What's he supposed to have done?
He was stopped at a roadblock and drew a gun on us.
Never.
Nothing. Come on, get out. Don't go anywhere. You'll be hearing from us.
Where is he? What have you done with him?
Aye, well, we had to kill him.
To the whole club. You can't go on telling them. We've no place for you. We've no use for you. We don't need you. That's what unemployment says to people. We can't allow this to go on.
One man was killed and another severely injured tonight by police on a routine anti-terrorist patrol in County Armagh. One of the officers saw an armed gunman entering this barn in the Ballinary area and heard the sound of a rifle being cocked inside. On entering the barn, they saw another man standing on a hay bale and pointing a rifle in their direction. They shouted 2 sets of warnings before opening fire. The RUC have named the dead man as Michael Tighe, 17, unemployed, off Ballinary.
Have you got that, lads? Routine patrol. Gunman entering the barn.
2 sets of warnings.
This year's Nobel Prize for fiction.
Martin Macaulay, please. How is he? About the same. Long night, ladies.
The 17-year-old was shot dead by the RUC on Wednesday. Tighe was killed when he was spotted carrying a rifle. Another youth injured in the same incident is seriously ill in Portsmouth Hospital. Attending the funeral, Michael Tighe's family maintained that their son had never been involved with the IRA. He had found the rifles in an old hay barn. This report from Clive Ferguson.
There was nothing paramilitary about the funeral, bearing out the Tighe family's denials that their son had been in the IRA. The Guard of Honour, which led the heirs from the house, was formed from the local Gaelic football club for which Michael Tighe had played. Several hundred people walked behind the coffin for the 4 miles to the local chapel, the numbers betraying the strength of feeling around the circumstances of the 17-year-old's death. Among the mourners, Seamus Mellon, the Roman Catholic politician who's called for an inquiry into the shooting. That call was
Martin Macaulay?
Yes.
You're charged with 2 counts of the possession of firearms and with conspiracy with persons unknown to murder members of the security forces.
£1,000 of explosives somehow takes a stroll from a building under your surveillance. 3 more of our lads join the annual statistics. Your IRA unit turns out to not have a pea shooter between them. For all I know, they might have been breaking the speed limit to get to Portadown for last orders. And now? Now it looks as if you've topped a wee lad who turns out to be the only Taig in County Down with no connection with the paramilitaries. It's got to stop, Sam.
I may be in a position to rectify the situation, Superintendent.
Word has come down from on high, Sam. They won't wear it.
What if I told you that McGlinchey might be available?
This is your man. Dominic McGlinchey.
Head of the Irish National Liberation Army.
Public enemy number 1. One of our touts has planted a small suggestion in the minds of a couple of bandits from Armagh. Roddy Carroll and Seamus Grew. They're to rendezvous with McGlinchey south of the border and bring it back onto our turf for some action. Word is they'll be driving a yellow Allegro. Special branch from Armagh will be following them down. Now watch yourselves when you're south of the border. Make sure you steer clear of the guards.
We expect their Allegro to cross the border at this point here and cross back at this point here. You set up your usual patrol point somewhere between Keady and Armagh.
Now let's be clear about this. No one's to lay a finger on them till they hit that roadblock. On our side of the border. Then we'll lift them. That's the good news. Do you want to tell them the bad news?
We're backing the army up on this one. They're handling surveillance.
So be ready if the balls are up.
This is a very dangerous man.
Aye. So are we. All right. Dismissed.
Routine check, sir. Very sorry, sir. Please pass through.
About you, lads.
Number? SMG.
Aye, it's better. I brought you Christmas cards.
Stay and have a cuppa. There's some heavy duty operation on out there tonight.
No sign of them. But I think the guard have clocked us. We'll be happy on home ground, sir. Aye. Right you are, sir.
You never bought this.
We need an unmarked car. They've spotted us. You could take mine. Right. You go with him. I'll call in.
Where did they go? Did you see how many in the car?
Couldn't make out.
They must have picked the bastard up by now. We'll have to find the phone.
Who is it we're after?
McGlinchey.
They're on their way, sir.
Crash out.
Crash out, crash out.
Establish VCP on KD Armagh Road. Suspects approaching.
Where's this bleeding checkpoint? I'll see a sodding thing.
Oh, God! Shit! Bollocks.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Fred Carno's bastard army.
Christ!
No, the Keystone bloody cops.
They've passed the bloody VCP.
Don't you dare bloody lose him. I want him stopped before he reaches Armagh.
Shit. Shit.
Get Chief Inspector Flanagan for me.
Well?
We're searching the chase route, sir. No sign of any weapons.
Nothing in the car. What about McGlinchey?
Nothing on that as yet, I'm afraid, sir.
You all right there, son?
Sit down, Constable. Now, you're under orders to carry out snap VCPs in the Armagh area, right? At 8:15, you received a radio message that a yellow Allegro had crashed through a routine vehicle control point, injuring an officer. Are you clear now, Constable?
Yes, sir.
You were in a regular patrol vehicle with two other officers when you spotted the suspect's car.
What about the Cortina? I must have written it off.
Just leave that to us, son.
You drove alongside and waved your cap out the window to signal it to stop.
What's going to happen to me, sir?
You drove alongside it.
What are they going to do to me?
Don't worry about it, son. We'll make sure you're well taken care of.
This is not about you, lad.
I can't say all this. It weren't like that.
This is a question of national security. You're bound by the Official Secrets Act. The law requires that you say what I tell you to say.
We have to protect our sources.
What about me?
Sit down, Constable! Now, I suggest we run through the facts so far.
Here'll do, laddie. Hit the deck. All right, no need to overdo it. Just need a spot of forensic.
Got the paperwork for this one?
No, they want you to get shot of it.
I'll need an accident report.
I don't think there was an accident. Was there?
I drew level with the Allegro here and waved my cap out of the window to signal it to stop.
Why that exact spot?
I understood I was approaching a strong Republican area. They must have had a good reason for going through the VCP.
Yes. The VCP. All right, Constable. Sit down. Carry on.
The car started revving up, and the front passenger door was opened. I noticed a movement and heard a loud bang. I believed I was being shot at.
Did you see a gun or a flash?
Not as I can recall, sir. I immediately opened fire with my Smith & Wesson.
This was still before the car stopped. Before you got out of the patrol car.
It all happened so fast, sir. I believed my life was in danger.
You say you shot Grew through his car door?
As far as I can recall, sir.
The thing is, son, it won't wash. None of it. We'll have to do better than this. According to this lot, his door was open when you shot him.
Sir, I must emphasize that I fired because I believed I had been shot at and my life was in danger.
The frigging forensics says you were less than 3 foot from him. He was unarmed. For Christ's sake! I need a statement that fits the facts.
This is what they told me to say.
It wouldn't stand up if it was soaked in starch.
What do you bastards want from me?
You're in the club now. Come on, I'll buy you a pint.
Just stuff it, Brannigan.
Take it easy, Robbo. We're all in this together, you know.
Why? That's how much you know. No, it's down to me, this one. They've stitched me up proper.
Hey, you! You'll be well looked after. Just do what you're fucking told.
I did. That's why I'm being charged with murder.
And a few days later, you were interviewed by the CID.
I believe it was the following week, sir.
Well, in the meantime, did you have any discussion with other police officers about the case?
I did indeed, my lord. We were given a debriefing. The incident was discussed from an operational point of view.
And what officers were involved? Oh, without giving their names, you could give their ranks.
A superintendent, a chief inspector, and others were present, my lord.
Were you given any particular instruction as to how you were to deal with your interview with the CID?
We were indeed, sir.
Oh. And what was that?
To certain facts which weren't to be revealed to the CID.
And what were these facts?
The involvement of the local special branch officer, the fact that the Army surveillance unit was involved, and the fact that we were acting on source information.
Was there any particular suggestion or reason given for not mentioning this?
There was indeed, my lord. It was to protect the source's life.
And was there any discussion about what you should tell the CID?
They produced a story, my lord.
What was the story?
Basically, my lord, it removed the accident and replaced it with the VCP.
Oh. So this was to appear as a chance encounter rather than a planned encounter?
And that's correct. The accident was all sorted out, and there was no source involvement at all.
Dropping us right in the shite. Under oath.
I don't see how we've any choice. Besides, the officers involved in the shootings of Tolman, Burns and McCare will also have to be brought to trial, of course.
I wish to register my personal lack of enthusiasm for that decision.
6 unarmed men killed in 1 month.
Known terrorists for the most part?
That's not really, with respect, the issue at hand.
Constable Robinson's remarks on the stand have rather put the cat amongst the pigeons, Jack.
Allegations of cover-ups by senior officers. The special branch operating as a force within a force, accountable to no one.
Let me remind you that Constable Robinson was acquitted.
Let me remind you that your officers submitted reports to the DPP for Northern Ireland that could at best be described as misleading.
Please, gentlemen, there's no room for division in this.
The press and the public will not be satisfied unless there's a full independent inquiry.
An outside team headed by a senior officer from the mainland.
Not on.
But reporting to you. Is the RUC responsible for the implementation of any findings?
Yes. Why not?
Did you have anyone in mind?
I propose the DCC of the Greater Manchester Police, John Stalker.
Have you ever met him, Jack?
No. I know of him, of course.
So you'll know he's state of the art?
I know his mother's a Catholic.
It's the Regional Inspector of Constabulary for you, sir.
Put him on, will you, please?
Hello, John. We've got a little job for you.
I'll be in touch then, John.
Do that, Barry.
You'll be reporting directly to Herman.
What's his position on this, sir?
Dead against it, I'm afraid. I shouldn't bank on a deal of cooperation. The DPP will do what he can.
If they're after a rubber stamping job, sir, you've come to the wrong man.
No. The Secretary of State wants an in-depth inquiry. You have my assurance we'll act on any findings.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you telling me.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Herman.
John Stalker. And this is my number 2, Detective Chief Superintendent John Thorburn.
Hello. Glad to meet you. Sit you down. Thank you, Alec. I can recommend the fish.
Thank you. I'm going to need your full cooperation, Sir John.
Take all the time you need. Aye. Well, have you sorted out their accommodation?
We've places in the RUC hostels.
That won't be necessary. Thorburn's made arrangements.
Well, it's just a small hotel on the coast. Get some Sierra and lungs.
Well, just let me know what you come up with when you've looked over the paperwork and any operational recommendations you might wish to make. I'll treat very seriously. Oh.
I don't think you understand, Sir John. I intend this to be a full re-examination of all three cases.
Is that so?
If I find any evidence that your office has committed criminal offences, I shall have no hesitation but to report them to the DPP, I can assure you.
I have no doubt you will, Mr. Stalker. You should realize that there is a shoot-to-kill policy in Ulster, all right. 21 soldiers of the British Army, 7 members of the Ulster Defence Regiment, 12 of my own policemen, 57 innocent civilians. They were all the victims in the very year in question, 1982, of a deliberate shoot-to-kill policy by Republican terrorist forces. These statistics, gentlemen, are etched into my brain. Just bear in mind that constitutionally, this is my show. You are here as my guest. You report to me. I'll decide what gets passed on to the DPP.
In the public interest, this investigation will be conducted like any official police inquiry on the mainland.
Like Operation Countryman.
In the national interest, I would remind you, Mr. Stalker, that this is not Manchester. You're in the jungle now, my friends. Watch your backs.
Your officers are in here, sir.
What is this place?
The Old Windsor Hotel. It's our annex, sir.
What's up? It's all right. That's the good guys. Oh, you see Barn Range at Garnival, just down the road.
We'll get those locks changed first thing, Keith.
Might I ask you what your routine will be, sir?
Yes. Team will fly over from Manchester every Monday morning and return on the shuttle Thursday night. I'll be over as and when I'm needed.
I've been asked to tell you not to enter Belfast city centre without our permission, sir.
What about the files I asked for?
Oh, yes, sir. They're on their way. I'll have them sent up.
Uh-huh.
All right, thank you.
I'm beginning to think that saying yes to this one was not the wisest decision of my life.
Well, come on, John. It's a very sharp career move, I say.
Shouldn't take forever.
Continue the story with the Stalker inquiry that followed, using actors to portray those involved. It'll be followed at 11:45 by a discussion program examining the issues raised.
November 1982. 3 unarmed men, suspected members of the Provisional IRA, shot and killed during a chase here at Tully Galley Road East. 2 weeks later, members of the same crack squad, the Special Support Unit, gunned down 2 young men in a hay shed here at Ballynerry Road North. Finally, an SSU officer shoots 2 INLA members at a housing estate outside Armagh. They too were unarmed. We're here to conduct a full investigation into these 3 incidents. We are not here, in spite of what some of you may have read in the press, we are not here conduct an examination into the existence of a so-called shoot-to-kill policy in the province. Now, certain allegations have been made concerning the manufacture of cover stories by senior special branch officers for at least one of these 3 incidents. Doubts have been cast as to the thoroughness of the CID investigation, resulting in considerable public concern. This is to be an outside, independent, and above all, objective inquiry. D.C.S. Thorburn.
Right. Now, Sir John Herman has promised us his full cooperation, and the relevant CID files are on the way over, so Ron, I want you to handle Tully Galley. Brian, you take the hay shed, and Jim, Mullaghcreevy Park. Eileen, you look after forensic, all right? The DCI Simons will coordinate your findings, and I'll be in day-to-day operational control.
I'm afraid all of you are going to have to get used to the idea of being away from your families for what may turn out to be a considerable length of time. And I should imagine that most of your days will be spent shifting bits of paper from one pile to another. But I don't need to remind you of the importance of the task in hand.
And besides, there's music while you work. Come in.
The files have arrived from CID, sir.
All right, we'll bring him in and stack him over here for the time being, will you?
These are they, sir. Tully Galley, the hay shed, Mullaghcreevy Park.
That's it.
Take a seat, please.
So, what can I do for you, gentlemen?
We need to see the intelligence files on each of the men shot in the 3 incidents under investigation.
Right. 3 T's, please. Your superior must have told you that those files are restricted.
I'd imagine they would be, yes.
Yes. Well, leave it with me. I'll see what I can do. So, you got your teas?
What about the files, sir?
Yes. Sorry, no can do. Permission denied.
My team cannot progress with this inquiry without access to those files, sir.
The information you're requesting is available on a need-to-know basis. What exactly do you need to know, Mr. Stalker?
I'll tell you that when I've seen those files.
These men were terrorists. My men were under threat. What more do you need to know?
The Greater Manchester Police are only here to do a job. As soon as we've done it, we'll go home.
Look out here, Mr. Stalker. There's a war out in those streets. Oh, the politicians in Westminster won't tell you it's a war. But my men, I'm a provost. And everyone who lives out there, they know it's a war. We need warriors, not pussyfooters, not paper pushers.
I need to see those files.
Leave it at me. I'll see what I can do.
I'm sorry, sir. You're expressly forbidden to take notes.
That's so bloody useless.
Mrs. McCarr,
Your father.
these 2 gentlemen want to talk to you about your race. They're from the Stalker inquiry.
Sure, it's not the laugh of the century. Well?
Mrs. McCurr, do you know of any reason why the RUC might have been after your husband that night?
In an Irish name. Should they'd been after him since he was at school.
Why don't you leave us alone? We're proud of our Jervis.
Is this a wholly accurate account?
Yes, sir.
Was there a cover story for each of the incidents?
I've got nothing to add to that, sir. I had my day in court.
Who was it came up with a cover story?
With respect, sir, do us a favour.
And how long did you any favours?
And you will, sir.
Come on, laddie. They were ready to drop you right in it. You could be inside doing 25 years.
Aye? Well, I'm not, am I? I wish I'd kept my bloody mouth shut.
You don't owe them anything. Now, why don't you tell us who it was debriefed you?
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Aye, go ahead.
How would you rate my chances of promotion?
It's a waste of energy. CID investigation. It's a total disgrace. Special branch files are doctored. The SSU get lockjaw every time I come into the room. Even the bloody relatives don't trust us. I mean, is there something I don't know? Have I contracted leprosy?
I wouldn't know, John. I'm not a doctor. So who do we think devised the cover stories?
Well, no one's letting on, naturally. It's got to be somebody high up in the special branch of Goff. I'd put my money on the head of tasking and coordination.
Who's that, then?
One Samuel George Flanagan.
Why don't we have him in?
Gosh, you'll love this. He's been seconded to the police college on the mainland. He's lecturing the top brass on counter-terrorism. That's another thing.
What?
Herman's promoted him. Superintendent Flanagan now.
Just get a gin and tonic.
Oh, you're fantastic. All right. Well, it's like Guinness with a spoon.
Any drinks, sir?
Not now, thanks, Ron.
Governor?
I don't know why we bother.
Well, the Tully trial comes up next week. Let's see how Brannigan's little tailstones have been called.
Will not make any difference. All they want is a whitewash.
No. The DPP wants a solid investigation. And so do I.
Well, we've no friends here. That's a fact.
We didn't come here to make friends, John.
Telephone, Mr. Stalker.
Stalker?
A word to the wise.
Who is this?
A friend. Your offices are bugged and your telephones are tapped. Be very careful.
Please, can you tell me who you are?
A sergeant in the RUC. I'm from a Catholic family, like yourself.
My family's got nothing to do with this.
Over here it does. I'm going to give you some names to look out for. Are you listening?
Yeah. Can we meet?
These are all special branch men. All right?
Right. Are you still there? Hello?
I've got some good news for you, boys. You won't have to testify. The judge wants to stop the trial.
Doubtless, when deciding whether to bring this prosecution on such tenuous evidence, the grave consequences likely to result from it were carefully weighed. Each of the accused was charged with murder while in the course of discharging his duties as a police officer. May not it be that members of the security forces may now ask, am I to risk my life carrying out this order, knowing that if I survive, my reward will be the even greater risk of life imprisonment as a murderer? As for the 3 deceased men who unhappily forfeited their lives, they died not because they were victims of murder, but because they decided not to stop when intercepted by the police and to risk all in an attempt to escape. It was a gamble that failed. I wish to make it clear that having heard the entire Crown evidence exposed in open court, I regard each of the accused as absolutely blameless. I consider that finding ought to be recorded, together with my commendation for their courage and determination in bringing the deceased men to justice. In this case, to the final court of justice.
I want a total reconstruction. Get a Home Office ballistics expert over from the mainland. I want to find out what really happened at Tully Galley that night.
shan't shake hands.
It's very good of you to see me.
I'm only too happy to help. It makes a nice change.
You know, I wouldn't have your job if they paid me.
I wouldn't welcome yours, no. The dead have many qualities that are often denied to the living, Superintendent. One such is that they never lie.
You performed the autopsies on all three of the Tulligalli victims. Well, the main point I'm trying to ascertain is...
I know what you're after. You want to know whether Brannigan was telling the truth when he said that he only fired during the chase.
Exactly. Was Toman already out of that car when he was fatally hit?
Thank you. McCurr and Burns, yes? Why, there's nothing too contentious here. The position of the bodies, the location of the wounds. None of these need be inconsistent with the statements made by the RUC officers. But when we come to Toman, that's a completely different matter. Look here. Now, that wound looks serious, but it's really quite superficial. This is the fatal wound that Brannigan says was inflicted by a shot fired from the car during the chase, I believe.
Uh-huh. Well, in fact, Brannigan claims that he never fired at all after the car came to a standstill.
That's right.
So, if the fatal shot hit Toman during the chase, as Brannigan claims, would he have been able to open the door and get out of that car after it had come to a stop?
It's unsafe to be dogmatic about the limitation of activity after any wound has been inflicted, Superintendent. The body is capable of the most amazing feats of endurance.
Your informed opinion. Could he have moved voluntarily out of that car?
In my opinion, no. Definitely not. That wound would have killed him almost instantaneously.
Could his body have fallen against the door handle somehow?
You mean, could the door have been thrown open after his death?
Is it possible?
Then, would he have fallen in this twisted position?
So Toman must have been shot after that car came to a stop. He must have been attempting to get out of the car.
I'm not stating that as a scientific fact. But it's what the evidence suggests, yes.
Did you tell that to the CID investigation at the time?
I put it in my report at the time, but they never came back to me on that one.
Am I to conclude that you put no weight whatsoever on the police statements?
Mr. Thorburn, there is no doubt in my mind that those men were dangerous terrorists. And some might say that society is safer with them in their graves, but that is not the point. The point is, as Juvenal said, quis custodiet ipsos custodes.
Say again.
Who will guard the guards?
Right. This is the Smith & Wesson the driver fired from the window during the chase. This is Montgomery's submachine gun, and this is Brannigan's Ruger. Between them, 109 rounds were let off.
Reasonable force, eh?
Have a look at this, sir. The pathologist says that Toman was killed by a bullet from Brannigan's Ruger. This is the one that was fired during the car chase.
There's no way that lines up with the fatal shot.
But we found another one. Right, now twist as if you're going to get out. That's the one that did it. Straight through the heart.
It could never have been fired by Brannigan in a car that was in pursuit from behind.
And there's no way it could have been fired from the position he said he took up after he got out of the car. Here. After he said he'd stop shooting. He must have been standing here.
Now, let's get this clear. You're saying that Brannigan, entirely contrary to his statement, must have got out of the car, crossed the road, and shot Toman in the back as he's getting out of the escort, already wounded and unarmed.
The evidence certainly points in that direction.
That's good work. Good work. Write it up.
Constable Brannigan.
I'm going to give you the chance to tell me exactly where you were standing when you fired that shot that killed Toman.
I wasn't standing anywhere.
I'll ask you again.
I told you. I fired from the car while it was still moving.
And what if I told you I can prove that you didn't?
Oh, aye. The DPP tried that one. They threw it out of court, remember?
Well, there are other things you've not stood trial for. Conspiracy to pervert the course of justice for one.
I'll be going now, sir.
Who coached you in that cover story, Brannigan?
Whose side are you on, Mr. Thornburn? We're sick to the guts of Brits coming over here telling us how to run this province. But you're a Scot. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Just tell me who concocted this load of bull, and I might see my way clear to forgetting that remark.
Did you not see the papers today, Chief Superintendent? Another one of our reservists was shot down yesterday. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that actually means? It means some poor man opening his front door first thing to bring in the milk. And two Provy bastards let him have it 5 times point blank. It means his way-ins standing there watching their father's guts spill out over the front steps. That's the risk that policemen take every day of their lives in this province. If you lived here, you wouldn't be asking me what I was doing some night 2 years ago. I was doing my duty. And it would still be my duty, whether I was wearing an RUC uniform or not. Get back across the shop, mister. I'm not the only one that needs to know what's happening, sir. What are you doing about this, sir? We've stuck to our part. I need some assurance from you.
You make a point, Constable. We have the matter in hand.
So long as you're aware, Superintendent, sir, that some of us have no intention of being dropped in the shite without making a splash.
A senior source in the RUC said that the setting up of SSUs was sanctioned at the highest level. Approval had to be received from the very top. I think we've been issued with a public warning, gentlemen.
Mr. Stalker's obviously ruffling a few feathers. Perhaps we might keep a closer eye on our friends from Manchester.
It's in all of our interests to keep the RUC under pressure.
Quite, I'm sure. But not so much that the lid blows off.
And we've blown the cover story apart. But we're a long way from popping corks and packing our bags. And we can't get stuck into the hay shed until after Macaulay comes to trial. So what I suggest is we take a look at Mullacreevy Park. The shooting of Grew and Carroll. Now, we're on firm ground there. We already have two stories. What Robinson said happened, and what he was told to say happened. Now, as per usual, the CID investigation reports are piss weak. And getting anything out of the branch is like pulling teeth. What we could really use is an independent witness. Yeah, I know. It's 2 years ago now. But somebody out there must have seen something. So, Ron, Keith, door to door, I'll throw back through the paperwork. All right. And remember, walls have ears. Even these walls. Especially these walls.
Back on the knocker. Feel about as welcome as a Jehovah's Witness. Right, you take that side, I'll take this. Yeah, I'll tell you what. You take that side, I'll take this.
That date's been changed.
How do you reckon that then, sir?
Who told you to alter that date?
I'll have to speak to my superiors.
We're conducting an inquiry here, man.
We can put you on a charge.
Have a think about it, son. Give me a wee while to get his memory in gear. We'll be back.
You know what I reckon? They've been on some bloody hush-hush Mission Impossible caper after those boyos. Probably for days. But they had to make it look like they'd drawn the guns on the 12th to fit in with the cover story.
I think you're right. I want it to come from him.
Never guess what we've got for you, sir.
An old girl lives in a row of houses up by the Paper Mill Bridge.
You know, where the army had the checkpoint.
She heard a loud bang, right? She looks out of her window and she sees an RUC Cortina has crashed into one of the army vehicles.
There's no record of that in any of the reports.
She looks at the clock, and it was a good 10 minutes before the shooting.
Well. I better go and see the transport officer, hadn't I?
No, what about him? The armourer?
I'll let him sweat it out for a while. Why don't we? Have a minute. Just routine. I wanted to have a squint at an accident report. What date? 12th of December, 1982. Crash Cortina. I'm told you were on duty at the time.
I can tell you now. There's nothing on that one.
Surely that's not usual.
Tell you true. I made a point of saying so at the time.
Why don't you fill out the report?
Well, now. I was ordered not to. Memo from on high.
You wouldn't by any chance...
Here it is. From the head of Special Branch himself.
Are you going to cooperate, or shall I caution you now?
No. You're not wrong. I did change the date. It wasn't as if I had much choice.
Who gave the order?
Superintendent Richards.
The CID officer in charge of the murder inquiry. What exactly did they expect from you, Richards? An investigation or a cover-up? Take these out of my sight.
I did what I had to.
Uh-huh. Did you go and see the pathologists?
I read the reports.
Attend any of the postmortems? Tried to find any independent witness? Interview the families?
This is Ulster, man. They'd never cooperate.
You never bloody tried.
They talked to us.
I went through all the necessary evidence.
After the branch had ferreted it. After the men who fired the shots had been told to parrot half-cocked stories even a cadet could have seen through. Well, what was going on, Richards?
It was special branch business. Ask them.
Did you ever ask them?
No.
Why not?
I never asked them because I knew they'd never tell me. All right?
What kind of detective are you?
CID means damn all over here. The branch calls the tune. National security takes priority over procedure. All right. You have to understand how it is.
So it's all down to the branch?
I didn't think a lot of it. And I still don't. But what can I do?
So why was it you gave the order to change the date in the armorer's log?
I completely reject that allegation. The investigation was carried out by the book.
You must think I came down on the last bloody shower.
This will all form part of our final report.
You know nothing about what's happening here, Mr. Thorburn.
I've seen you, Richards. You can go.
You're going down the wrong track. You're getting nowhere. You really want to know what all this is about? Well, take a look at what happened at the Kinnigo embankment.
What's the Kinnigo embankment?
The three officers were responding to a routine incident report.
The theft of a dumper truck battery from a construction site near the Oxford Island Nature Reserve outside Lurgan. The blast blew their vehicle 70 feet into a field and left a crater 40 feet wide and 15 feet deep. The Kinago embankment is less than a mile from Lurgan College, where the Chief Constable Sir John
2 weeks before the first of the shootings.
Yes.
Arriving at the scene, he gave his reaction.
This fills me with sadness and horror. I'm satisfied. It is the intent of the terrorists to continue in this vein, but they will be prevented from doing so. These men...
Find what you want. Nearly there,
A normal call for assistance from a member of the public. If this community
You know what the rumor was at the time?
malignancy within
It's another special branch cock.
vomited out of its system, there can be no future for us.
This is not to give you the creeps. Three RUC officers killed by a landmine at Kinago. The source names Toman, Burns, Macaulay. A few weeks later, they're all shot. The last of them right here.
Well, at least we got a possible motive. Sells in the world, huh? Revenge.
They must have known we'd find out about this. Who do they think we are? Pinky and bloody Perky.
Always it's the old story. dare not tell us what happened because they have to protect their source. And every reference to him in the files comes up classified. For special branch eyes only.
Well, he's obviously still in place.
Well, there could be another explanation.
Go on.
Look, the shipment comes across the border.
Mm-hmm.
Special branch follow it here. And yet, by some miracle, it's smuggled out past their surveillance.
Well, it's not an easy place to stake out.
And a few days later, it's used to blow 3 IUC men to buggery at Kinnago. What if Special Branch knew that shipment went out?
What do you mean?
They let it go out.
They sacrificed 3 of their own men.
Well, maybe the tout needed a result. Maybe his provo chumps were beginning to smell a rat.
Oh, come on, John. They're still policemen.
And maybe 3 country coppers is a small price to pay to keep your top sauce sweet.
You've caught the Ulster bug.
What's that?
Seeing a conspiracy as the motivating force behind everything that happens.
Aye, well, maybe you're right.
Well, if you can't get to the source, see if you can have a word with his handlers. Seeing a conspiracy as the motivating force behind everything that happens.
Well, maybe you're right.
Well, if you can't get to the source, see if you can have a word with his handlers.
Who was responsible for Kinnago?
I don't know exactly. He's one of them. He hears things.
How much did he receive for that information?
That's out of order, sir. It's classified.
Oh, but you did pay him.
We're authorized to handle operating costs. There's a political motivation here. They're not in it for the money.
Well, I've seen the E4A logs. The 5,000 was the figure quoted.
If you know already, why are you asking us?
How much has he received over the years?
I can't answer that.
20, 30, 50 grand?
He's a top source.
Big money, then.
The going rate.
It's quite an incentive. With figures like that, a man might be tempted to overstep the terms of his job description.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that your man set up Toman and Burns for you. I'm suggesting he planted those rifles in the hay shed.
Have you no idea what we're up against here? These are not ordinary, decent villains who come quietly when the long arm of the law puts a hand on the shoulder. This is the front line.
I want to see your man.
Perhaps we're not making ourselves clear. This man enjoys ultimate security. His value to us is beyond estimation. You will never be allowed to compromise that position. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, sir?
stop here, would you please?
Just wait here for us, will you?
How long will that be for, sir?
Well, I would say for about as long as it takes.
Mr. Tighe, I'm John Stalker. This is my number 2, Chief Superintendent Thorburn.
You must come in.
Mrs. Tighe, please don't stand. I don't know if you're aware of why we're here.
We've just had the tea. Would you have a cup?
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're conducting an inquiry. We want to hear the family's side. We want to talk to you about Michael.
Well, we'll help you if we can, Mr. Stalker, but I can't see as how it can do any good. Not now.
We're here to find out exactly what happened, Mr. Tighe. What was Michael doing on that day?
Why, you know, he was working his piece of ground.
And then he went for a ride.
Yeah, they love that bike. Him and Martin saved up to buy it.
Had he known Martin McCullough long?
Oh, aye, since way back, yeah.
Were either of them in any way involved with the Republican cause?
Well, I can't speak for Martin. But our Michael had nothing to do with anything like that, sir. I would have known. He never concerned himself with such things. He was not what you might call a bright lad.
Did you tell that to the IUC?
No, they never came back. Not since that night, you know.
The IUC never questioned you?
They never did, no.
What time did they call that night?
Well, it must have been about 8. Aye.
And what happened?
Well, turned the place over a bit, you know.
What were they after?
We bear them no ill will. They were doing their job. It's not been an easy time for them in these parts, so it's not.
What would you hope to see come out as a result of our inquiry?
It can do no good. Opening old wounds.
Don't you want to see justice done?
It's not that we don't appreciate what you're doing, Mr. Stalker.
I can assure you of one thing. I shan't leave Northern Ireland till I've established the truth. I can promise you that.
We've lost our son, Mr. Stalker. Nothing you can do will bring him back to us.
Dr. Gunny.
I'm going to have those buggers, John.
May it please your lordship, the accused has been charged on 2 counts.
Excuse me, Mr. Count. Would you gentlemen like to come and sit down here? I wouldn't want you to miss anything.
There are 2 counts under the Firearms Act of 1981 to which the accused, Martin Macaulay, is pleaded not guilty. And could you see anything through the window?
I could see bales of hay, my lord.
Did you become aware of anything at that stage?
Yes, my lord.
What was that?
A noise from within.
What sort of noise was it?
It was a metal noise, like the sound of a gun being cocked.
Did you hear any noise from outside?
I heard Sergeant X shout a warning.
Do you remember what the nature of the warning was?
Not really, my lord, except that we were the police and for them to come out. He shouted it several times.
Let's take the opportunity, shall we? Excuse me, Mr. Finucane. I'm John Stalker.
I'm perfectly aware who you are.
I realise we can't discuss the trial whilst it's still sub judice.
That's right. We can't.
But I was wondering if you might arrange for us to have a word with your client when this is all over.
I doubt Martin would want to talk to you.
Well, he's made no statement to the IUC. We've not got a lot to go on.
An accused man still has the right to remain silent. They haven't taken that away yet, as far as I'm aware.
Look, we're not the RUC. You find we do things differently. From the mainland.
Why? Like the British Army?
We're conducting an independent inquiry.
Mr. Stalker, may I have a word with you?
You might mention it to him.
I might.
Are you aware who that was? He's a flaming provey.
He's Martin Macaulay's solicitor.
These types are worse than the IRA.
I will not be dictated to by you as to who I can, cannot converse with.
And did you know he's got a brother who's a wanted terrorist on the run? I hope you're aware of what embarrassment you've caused the force.
Witness White, would you just mark your position on the map at the time you first discharged shots?
Here, my lord.
And the position of Ty? You have indicated that he was standing on top of some bales.
Yes, sir.
The bales were some 5 foot high?
Approximately that height, sir, yes.
And if we take it that the individual was round about 5'7" or 8, that would put his head at at least 10 foot in the air?
That would be correct, my lord, yes.
And was the person pointing a weapon at you?
He was, my lord, yes.
And if your bullet struck a man who was standing in the position which you described, you would expect the bullet to go in, first of all, from front to back because he was facing you.
That would be right, my lord, yes.
And you would expect it to go in at a lower angle and at a lower height than it would exit.
You would, my lord.
I suggest that the young man Tig was struck twice, and I will produce expert evidence to show that on both occasions the exit wound was lower than the entrance wound.
I know nothing about that, my lord.
It would be curious, wouldn't it, if a man were standing high above you?
I wouldn't be in a position to say, my lord.
You are Assistant Chief Constable Trevor Forbes, head of the Special Branch of Northern Ireland.
You know well who I am.
I have to tell you that anything you say will be taken down and maybe used
cautioning
against
me?
I have reason to believe that you did knowingly conspire to suppress evidence and to mislead the Director of Public Prosecutions on a serious incident.
What?
Specifically? Tampering with a crash incident report.
Hope you know what you're doing, Mr. Stalker.
I think I'm fully aware of the remit of my investigation.
Oh, will you get off your high horse, man?
Special Branch's entire dealings with my inquiry have been characterized by contemptuous lack of cooperation.
A word, Mr. Stalker. In private.
Well. That seems to have had the desired effect.
What's going on?
Some bedtime reading for you, John. That's the informant's intelligence file. Read, mark, and inwardly digest. I'm going back to see how the trial's progressing.
There are some points of clarification I wish to put to the witness.
Certainly, my lord.
Sergeant X, when you pulled the accused there, he was still conscious, was he?
I cannot remember, my lord. He might have been.
He was very badly injured, was he?
He was, yes, my lord.
Did he say anything to you at all?
He said no word at all, my lord.
Was he moaning or expressing pain?
Not that I can recall, no, my lord.
And while you were attending to the injured person, Did you have any talk with him?
No, my lord.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
You've described to his lordship how you opened fire on these occasions. Can you say why you opened fire?
I was apprehensive for the safety of my own life and that of my colleagues, my lord.
No further questions, my lord.
This better be good. It's at a crucial stage in there.
Sure. That's from the intelligence files. It's been suitably doctored as usual, but I think they may have missed this.
Ty, I've come to feed the dogs. What is this?
Look at the date.
21st of November, 1982.
It's a tape transcript from the hay shed.
They must have had a bug in there.
3 days before an apparently random shooting.
I reckon there was a tape running when Ty and Macaulay were shot, sir.
We get hold of that tape. We could prove once and for all whether our friends in there are perjuring themselves.
We'll go and see the DPP. We've got to get this trial stopped.
The surveillance on the hay shed is not to be an aspect of the crime's case.
I need that tape, sir.
Oh, I can see that you do. If there is a tape, yes.
If it was running at the time of the shootings, it would prove once and for all whether a warning was shouted.
Macaulay told his doctor that I stood over him discussing whether to finish him off. But if that's on the tape, that's dynamite.
Yes, yes. If.
We need you to stop Macaulay's trial, sir.
We need time to check the RUC story against a full tape transcript.
I don't think that anything you've told me would influence the Crown not to proceed with the trial. However, if you can find any evidence to support these speculations, I can assure you that the DPP's office would take the matter seriously. Very seriously indeed.
I have some reservations about the accuracy of certain parts of the police evidence. Unfortunately, they enter the arena of credibility under a cloud. The cloud that initially, each of them, knowingly, made a false allegation in their first written statements to the effect that they had seen a man armed with a rifle enter the hay shed. There was not a word of truth in this. It was not invented by them, but regrettably by one or more of their superiors who told them that they were obliged to say it. All three maintain at this trial that save for this single untruth and its embellishments, the remainder of their statements is a completely true account of what happened after they arrived at the hay shed. I have, however, in the light of the forensic evidence, some of the medical evidence and otherwise, doubts as to whether this is so. I believe the proper course for me at this trial is to exclude all the police evidence and its implications from my consideration and adjudication of the case. However, it remains my true conviction that the defendant was lying in denying possession of the rifles. Will the defendant please rise? Martin Macaulay, I find you guilty as charged on both counts of offences under the Firearms Act of 1981 and sentence you to 2 years in prison, suspended for 3 years.
So the hay shed was under surveillance at the time of the shooting?
It was, sir, yes.
Electronic surveillance.
There was a listening device in there, sir.
And you were monitoring the tapes when Ty and Macaulay were shot.
I was indeed, sir.
Right. Now, at the time of the shooting...
Excuse me, sir. Before we go any further, I've no objections to answering questions relating to my general duties on that day, but I must refuse to make any specific statement about the contents of that tape, unless instructed to do so by my senior officers.
This is a Detective Chief Superintendent you're talking to here, Constable.
Under the terms of the Official Secrets Act, I'm not allowed to impart that information, sir. Can I go now, sir?
This is getting ridiculous. I cannot complete the investigation you brought me here to undertake unless you order your officers to allow me access to the tape.
May I ask what you expect to find from this?
I expect to be able to tell Mr. and Mrs. Ty why their son was shot. Will you authorize its release?
If such a tape, or the product of such a tape, were indeed to exist, then of course it wouldn't be mine to give.
Why ever not?
It would be the property of MI5.
Fine. I'll go and see MI5.
You do that, Mr. Stalker. That's all right with me.
And we should need your authorization to interview the Special Branch informant.
Why?
Because I have reason to believe that he's been acting as an agent provocateur.
Out of the question. That is entirely beyond the terms of your brief. He belongs to Special Branch.
Sir John, it's Special Branch we're here to investigate.
This is a matter of national security.
Well, perhaps I'm not making myself clear, Sir John. I should tell you that it will be my duty at the appropriate time to interview the most senior officers of the RUC, yourself included, under caution in connection with these matters. Policing's no bloody picnic over here. But these men make their own laws. They're acting like a firm within a firm. All right. Now, 3 officers blown up at Kinnigo. Quite clearly, Special Branch went after the men they thought were responsible on no other evidence than the word of a paid informant. Their source gives them the names. So, for all we know, he even sets them up himself. Special Branch know in advance where and when these men can be found, so they send in some cowboy squad and blow them all to kingdom come. Unfortunately for them, they turn out to have been unarmed. IRA or no IRA, at the moment these men died, they were no possible threat to anyone. So the branch, they doctor the evidence at the scene of the crime. They coach their men to lie to the CID. And then they all sit down and they concoct a version of the events fit for public consumption. And everybody goes along with it. Nobody raises a murmur. What I want to know is how high up it goes. They say it's policy. Well, God knows what that's supposed to mean. It's not Dixon of Doff Green we're dealing with here, you know. It's more like some death squad from a banana republic. These men are totally out of control. Well, not any longer. No matter what the provocation, whatever the threat.
The moment the police use the methods of the terrorist, they descend to the level of the terrorist. We can never allow the end to justify the means. We're in Northern Ireland to ensure the maintenance of the rule of law, just as we would on the mainland.
Operational strategies have, by necessity, concentrated on the use of converted terrorists, so-called Charlie Tankers.
I quite agree with you, Mr. Stalker. If such a tape were in existence, it might well prove of significant value.
You're suggesting it doesn't exist?
I'm suggesting that at this point, I don't know whether it does or not.
I need the product of that tape. All the transcripts, all the logs.
Yes, I can see that.
You see, I don't believe that what I was asked to look into here are a few procedural irregularities. These are issues of the utmost gravity.
Yeah. You may well be right.
Well?
MI5 won't do anything to stand in your way.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, you can tell Herman you have my permission to view the log and anything else you require to complete your investigation. Good luck, John.
Thank you.
Yes. I think we may have a slight problem.
Burton, there's a couple of your chums from the Greater Manchester Police to see you. Come on.
Sit down, Burton. So, what have you got for us this time?
I've heard you might have an interest in the Quality Street gang.
Why?
How do you think they get the drugs in?
You tell us, Davy.
You want to keep your eye on a certain businessman. A Rotarian. A Tory bigwig. Why don't you ask him about his yacht? His holidays in Miami.
And who is this pillar of society?
I'll say no more.
Oh, come on. Every copper in Manchester knows you'd sell your white-haired old granny for 20 woodbines.
10.
Who is it, Davy?
Well, you might keep your eye on Kevin Taylor.
Oh, for Christ's sake, not that old chestnut. Mafeking has been relieved, you know.
You know we've got nothing on him.
Oh, aye. And why is that, then?
You tell us.
Because he's got somebody to keep things sweet for him. What did you think?
Oh, come on, Davy. Spit it out.
He's got a pet copper on a pension, you Burke.
Why? Who's that, then?
Deputy Chief Constable John Stalker.
Sit down, would you please? Your full name, please.
Samuel George Flanagan.
During the period of October to December 1982, what was your position?
I was Chief Inspector in charge of a tasking and coordination group at Gulf Parish, County Armagh.
Now, before I put any further questions to you, I must tell you. We're here to investigate allegations that you fabricated evidence, which you subsequently submitted to investigating officers, and that this amounts to an attempt to pervert the course of justice.
This is utter nonsense.
It's therefore my duty to caution you that you're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so. But that anything you do say will be taken down in writing and may be given in evidence. Do you understand?
What are these allegations?
Did you meet with other senior special branch officers on the evenings following the incidents at Tullygally East Road, the Ballinary Hayshed, and Malacreevy Park?
Aye, I did, yes.
And what was the purpose of these meetings?
Well, you know, don't you?
And why don't you tell us?
We met for the debriefings. We had to get the story straight.
Was this at your initiation?
It was policy.
Did you devise the cover stories?
Well, it was a kind of Chinese parliament, you know?
I beg your pardon?
Well, the decision was made by the assembled company, but no one person could be said to be responsible for it. Democracy in action, you might say. How am I doing? Is this what you're after? You're getting what you want.
What's the aim of SSU training?
They're trained to react.
Firepower, speed, aggression.
That's right.
In other words, shoot to kill.
There was no shoot-to-kill policy. That's a media invention.
What about Killigo, Flanagan?
Well, that's a mistake I'll have to live with.
You knew the explosives were in that hay shed?
I did, yes.
How did you feel when you heard those 3 officers had died?
How do you think I felt, man?
So you engineered Tullygally and the hay shed in revenge for those murders?
Come on, you'll have to do better than that.
How did the explosives get out? MI5 had that place bugged, didn't they?
We had a few problems with the device, as I recall. I think you let those explosives out. And why would I do that?
To protect your source.
Those men were expendable, weren't they, Flanagan?
You're on the wrong track.
You let those men die. Your man needed a result to prove to the provost that he was not the informant.
That's a damn lie. Take that back.
But you were prepared to tamper with the evidence to protect that source.
In the interest of national security, it was policy.
Policy? You call it policy, I call it lies, deception, perversion of justice.
Aye, well, you would.
Who was it produced this policy?
I can't help you there.
How high up does this go?
Mr. Stalker, I like my job. I know which side I'm on. I think it's the right one. Now, we may not use the same rule book, but I think you're on the same side too. All coppers have to be.
Can we just get back to the matter at hand?
You look at us from where you're standing, and I dare say you think we're like a death squad from some banana republic. You think we're out of control. But from where we're standing, this is the only way we can maintain control. We know who the bandits are, all of them. We could take them out in one operation, if that's the way we worked. But they're still in business. So where's this so-called shoot-to-kill policy?
Which of your superiors was aware of the cover stories?
Did it go right to the top? You'll have cause to remember this touching display of loyalty, Flanagan. They'll have no compunction about throwing you to the lions.
Nonsense.
The haystack was still bugged at the time of the shootings, wasn't it?
I can't help you there.
That tape from the hayshed. In whose possession is it now?
Oh, well, I can't answer that question. In fact, I'll have to speak to someone before I answer any more of your questions.
Where's that tape?
What tape?
How reliable is this Burton?
Bit sporadic, sir, if truth were told. He's given us a few tidbits in the past.
I've done a check. Just a bit of work for the RUC. I speak quite highly of him.
It'd certainly explain a few things, though. We've never managed to get anything to stick in that particular department.
Do you want us to take it any further, sir?
Let me give it some thought. These are extremely serious allegations.
You're to go straight in, sir.
Thank you.
John Stalker.
We have an appointment with Sir John Herman.
Well, I'm afraid Sir John is out of the office at the moment.
Where is he?
He's out, sir.
Well, that's all right. We'll wait.
Well, I was told not to expect him back today, sir.
Right.
Right, Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Kevin Taylor.
All right, Beryl. On whose authority are you here?
Right, in you come, lads.
What's this all about, eh?
Excuse me, sir. Conspiracy to obtain dishonestly from the Cooperative Bank PLC £240,000 by deception.
You must be joking. That was a loan. Here. Bank statements.
I have authorization for a tape and a transcript of that tape to be handed over into my custody.
I cannot release anything without Sir John's express permission.
Then get it.
I'm afraid he's unavailable.
We're not leaving without that tape.
I know you've been after me. I'm gonna find out who's been pushing this. I'm not without influence in this town, you know.
Is that right, sir?
Heads are gonna roll for this. I'll tell you that.
Bingo.
These are the transcripts, Mr. Stalker.
Where's the tape?
It's our usual policy to wipe those tapes, sir. I need a signature for that, sir.
Pleasure. What is it, John?
Voices inaudible, noise of wind. This is bullshit.
Look at the page of the shooting.
November 1982. Voices inaudible, metallic sounds, clicks, muffled noises. Nothing of intelligence value.
Let me have a look. They've played us for mugs. Stalker here. Have you any idea what's going on, sir? They've palmed me off with a phony transcript. I'm a hair's breadth away. I simply need your authority to get my hands on the actual tape, sir.
Give me a few days, would you, John?
I'll see what I can come up with.
And when I go back for the tape, I've every intention of interviewing very senior officers under caution.
Yes. Well, if you feel it's appropriate.
I need to get over there as a matter of urgency, sir.
I'll see what I can do.
I intend to finish this job.
No doubt of that, John. I'll get back to you. All right?
I find it all extremely regrettable.
I don't see that we've a deal of choice.
So, we're all agreed? Well, better show him in then.
The bloody media will have a field day with this one.
It's the lesser of two evils.
Would you come in now, please? Chief Constable Sampson.
Ah, Colin. We've got a little job for you.
John! Telephone!
Who is it? Stalker.
I have to inform you that as a result of certain information received about you...
What information, sir?
...which might constitute a breach of the police disciplinary code, I shall be conducting a formal investigation. In the meantime, you are requested to take extended leave.
Do I have any choice?
I'm not sure as you do.
What am I supposed to have done?
That's what my inquiry will be attempting to ascertain.
What about my inquiry? Things are at a critical stage in Northern Ireland.
I'll be looking after that too from now on. Take some time to clear your office.
Mr. Stalker, is your suspension connected with your violence in Northern Ireland?
Is there any truth in the rumour you're the victim of a Masonic plot, Mr. Stalker?
Are you still on the case, Mr. Stalker?
Is there a shoot or kill policy in Northern Ireland, Mr. Stalker?
Come on, sir. I think it's time you're going home. There's no truth in any of this, is there, sir? If they'd have wanted a whitewash, they picked the wrong team, sir. We were so close.
Aye. Weren't we just?
Good evening. If you've been watching the film we've shown last night and tonight, Shoot to Kill, you'll want, as we do, to pursue some of the questions it raises. What's the truth behind the Stalker affair? What was the policy of Northern Ireland police, which ended in the deaths of 6 people? Was John Stalker right to pursue his inquiries as far as he did? And was there a conspiracy to remove him? With me to discuss these points are Ian Gow MP, the chairman of the Conservative Backbench Committee on Northern Ireland, Seamus Mallon MP, deputy leader of the Social and Democratic and Labour Party, David Trimble MP, the legal spokesman of the Ulster Unionist Party, Larry Cox, deputy secretary of Amnesty International, and the director of the film, Peter Kosminski. But first, what about the idea of telling a factual story as a drama, a so-called drama documentary? Is it an acceptable way of revealing an otherwise untellable truth, or is it a dangerous mix of fiction and of fact? Peter Kosminski, why didn't you make what's known as a straightforward documentary?
Well, it was impossible, and we tried. The original idea was to make this as a documentary, and that's what I basically do. I'm a documentary director. But all the people we would have wanted to interview were either dead, in that they were shot by the RUC in 1982, they had disappeared and we'd given new identities, or they were still serving policemen and weren't available for interview. Equally, the incidents themselves weren't filmed, so it would have been a very strange documentary without interviews or pictures. So what we did instead was we researched it as a documentary. The 3 researchers were normal documentary factual researchers. We prepared a research brief that ran to something like 150 pages plus appendices, and then we presented that brief to an experienced writer who turned it into drama.
So briefly, is there anything in there which didn't happen?
Absolutely nothing.
Ian Gow, an acceptable way to tell an otherwise untellable story?
I question your use of the word factual in your introduction. The former Chief Constable of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, Sir John Herman, has said that so far as he is concerned, it is inaccurate. The Royal Ulster Constabulary has itself issued a statement saying that so far as it is concerned, there are many factual inaccuracies. Although it was, in a sense, a gripping drama, I deplore the making of this film, not least because the events which it purports to describe have been the subject of one of the most prolonged examinations and inquiries ever, the subject of statements in the House of Commons made by the then Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and by the Attorney General, and a consequence of this film, which should have been directed, if you're going to make a film of this nature about Northern Ireland, against the real evil of the IRA. This examination has put into the public focus, once again, criticism of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and there will be an impression that the Royal Ulster Constabulary has been engaged, first of all, in wrongdoing, and then in a cover-up, and I don't believe that either was true.
Well, are you suggesting there shouldn't be criticism of the Royal Ulster Constabulary?
I'm saying that at this juncture of our affairs, that I believe that a consequence of the making of this film will to give encouragement to the IRA and discouragement to the Royal Ulster Constabulary.
Peter Kosminski.
Well, I think Mr. Gow is right to draw attention to the statement made by Sir Patrick Mayhew, the Attorney General. He made a statement to the House in January of 1988 in which he said that the Stalker and Sampson inquiries had found evidence of a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice within the RUC in 1982. However, he, with others, had decided that it was not in the public interest to proceed against any of the officers involved. Now, as journalists, I think we rightly question that decision. It's a free country. We see the emergence of that kind of questioning in Eastern Europe. We welcome it there. We're questioning it here. And this, to me, is a perfectly legitimate exercise of journalistic questioning of a rather puzzling decision.
David Trimble?
It's perfectly legitimate, of course, to question and to criticise where appropriate. But what is wrong with this film is that it paints an entirely false picture. I'm quite sure that the impression that will be left in a lot of people's minds after watching it was that there was a shoot-to-kill policy. But yet what Peter Kosminski has not conceded, and which he ought to concede, is that both Stalker in his interim report and Sampson in his final report both said unequivocally there was no shoot-to-kill policy. Now, on the matter that he referred to about Sir Patrick Mayhew's statement, let's just be clear about this. When he talked about a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, what he was referring to was the cover-up of intelligence sources, which had been revealed to the public a long time previously in the court actions involving Robinson and the other police officers. Those cover-ups were revealed not because of Stalker's activities. Let's be clear about that. It wasn't Stalker that broke the cover-ups, nor was it blurted out by Constable Robinson as that film portrayed. The truth of the matter is that the cover-ups were detected by Sir Barry Shaw, the Director of Public Prosecutions for Northern Ireland. Now, this film gave a false picture about what happened. What happened, in fact, was that the Ulster legal system worked, and worked effectively. Stalker himself contributed nothing to the inquiry into the cover-ups. Indeed, Stalker's
well, I mean, one must
contributions...
point out, of course, that the Stalker-Sampson inquiry was never published, so we don't exactly know what, indeed, it did find. Peter Kosminski.
Well, yes, Mr. Trimble is right to say that Stalker in his book has said that he found no evidence of a shoot-to-kill policy. However, I would point out, as the viewers may have noticed in the closing credits of the film that's just ended, that Stalker's deputy, Detective Chief Superintendent John Thorburn, the former joint head of Manchester CID, and Stalker's number 2 on the inquiry, who carried out the inquiry 4 days a week for 2 years on a day-to-day basis. Stalker only came over every 2 or 3 weeks as required, was the consultant on this film. He's expressed himself happy with the result. He endorses the result. Now, it's for the viewer to say whether the film implies that there is a shoot-to-kill policy, but Thorburn, who helped write both the Stalker and Sampson reports, is happy with it.
It's not a question of implying. The phrase which I think is going to stay in a lot of people's memory is Stalker shouting his head off about death squads in a banana republic. And that is a very clear statement of there being a shoot-to-kill policy.
Yeah, well, I think there's one thing that no one disputes after watching this program, because it is a matter of central fact. First of all, 6 people who were unarmed were killed in circumstances where they could have been arrested by the use of minimum force. That's fact number 1. Fact number 2, they were killed by a special service unit which was trained to act with speed, firepower and aggression. That means only one thing, especially put in the context that they were put in by their superior officers. 3. Fact number 3, that the evidence was fabricated by very senior police officers. That was established and admitted by the Attorney General in the House of Commons. Fact number 4, the Attorney General refused to prosecute those people on spurious grounds, and very spurious grounds indeed.
We can argue on both sides of this issue. I'd like to get on now to, I think, one of the substantive issues that we really should discuss here this evening. The question of how much force is necessary, how much force is reasonable. And David Trimble, if I could start with you. I mean, the European Convention on Human Rights requires the use of lethal force only when absolutely necessary. The law in Northern Ireland talks about reasonable force. Looking at these special service units, described by Deputy Chief Constable Michael McAtamney, when he described them as trained in firepower, speed and aggression, to shoot at the trunk of the body, to put a target permanently out of action, to eliminate the threat. Does that sound like a group which is going to use reasonable force? Is there not a danger there?
It is reasonable force in the circumstances. And let us emphasize that phrase. It's reasonable force in the circumstances. It's nothing unusual about the law in Northern Ireland. It's the law in the United Kingdom as a whole. And the circumstances are the circumstances which may exist presently in Northern Ireland and also exist in other places as well. And you have to look at them against the light of the fact that it is the duty of the security forces to effect arrests. And then you look at the question of effecting arrest and say, what is the reasonable force which has to be used in that situation in order to effect the arrest? When the bit comes down to the bit, now this is important, there is no significant difference between the European Convention and British law.
Right, but I mean, to ordinary people, is it reasonable force to shoot 109 bullets at a target, as happened in incidents, for instance, yes, like that shown in the film involving Toman, Burns and McCare? Is that can I get an answer? Is that reasonable force?
That was reasonable force in those circumstances. It doesn't mean that you're always entitled to open fire when someone breaks through a roadblock. It depends on the circumstances. And the circumstances are those which are believed to exist by the members of the security force exercising the lethal force.
And a situation in which a police officer within less than 3 feet of his target pulls a car door open and shoots 4 shots.
When you're dealing with people who you believe to be dangerous terrorists, who have proved themselves to be dangerous, who you have reasonable grounds for believing are armed and are likely themselves to use lethal force, this becomes necessary. And there's no breaking that fact.
I mean, how can you square up those facts? Number one, Toman, it was shown very clearly in the film, and it is a forensic fact, that Toman was shot through the side door of the car from very, very close range, as was Seamus Screw. Now, nobody disputes that. But the reality of the situation is that in these 3 incidents, the people who were killed were under the... let me finish, please. Were under the closest surveillance possible. The police knew exactly. The police knew exactly what was going to happen. And yet, what was the net result? In the Ballinary case, they got it wrong as to who was in the shed. In the Armagh case, they got it wrong as to who was in the car, as was exemplified by the fact that they expected Dominic McGlinchey to be there. And in the Craigavon case, it was shown very, very clearly through forensic evidence in that film, very accurate forensic evidence, that they were not shot in a car chase. They were not shot at a roadblock. They were shot by a policeman when the car had stopped.
Right. Is your argument that as long as the security forces believed themselves to be in danger, then the force was acceptable?
It's not just a question. It's not just. Oh, it's got to be an honest belief and a reasonable belief. It's not just a question of believing themselves to be in danger. Sorry, what I emphasised is that they have a duty to make arrests. It's not just a question of self-defence. And people very often forget that.
Compared
it's a question
to
of their
Stephen
duty
Waldorf in London around the same time.
And it's not something unique to Northern Ireland, nor is it something unique to these 3 cases. There have been scores of cases.
Scores of cases. But reasonable to make arrests. I mean, was an attempt made to make an arrest?
Yes. When they were chasing the gentleman concerned, when they were chasing those cars and then opening fire on them. Those were done in order to arrest and to capture those persons.
I think you've got to remember
that's right.
4 officers of the Royal Ulster Constabulary were tried for murder. All 4 were acquitted. In the 3rd case which we're examining this evening, the Director of Public Prosecutions concluded that there was no case for bringing another prosecution for murder. But 4 RUC officers were acquitted.
Is not the pattern many times when these cases arise in Northern Ireland that self-defence is the accepted defence? And is there not the danger that there will be many people in Northern Ireland who feel the security forces can always hide behind that benefit of the doubt and behind that particular defence?
Look, in this case, 4 police officers were tried for murder. And if your allegation is true, that they used unreasonable force, that they had no reasonable belief and no reasonable justification for what they did, then they would have been convicted instead of being acquitted. And in the 3rd case, the Director of Public Prosecutions, who is a totally independent and very highly respected person indeed, decided that there was not sufficient evidence to bring a prosecution.
The point is that we don't know what happened, to go back to the original point. We can't judge how fair those trials were, how accurate they were, because we know that there was a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. There was an investigation set up to look into it that might have gotten the facts. The results of that investigation... I'm not distorting anything. The results of that investigation were never published.
We've gone through this business of what that perversion of justice actually meant. I want to get on to another point, and it's this one, Ian Go. During the film, and it's a comment that's often made in Northern Ireland, people did say, does John Stalker not realise what it's like here? Does he not understand what the daily threat from terrorist violence is? Does he not realise this is very different from Greater Manchester? To a certain extent, should people be surprised if this sort of force is used? Is it very different in Northern Ireland, and should one accept that methods will be different?
It is dramatically different in Northern Ireland, because mercifully in Great Britain, and here are we sitting in London, we do not face that threat which is faced by people every day in Northern Ireland. And Seamus was saying to me earlier this evening that one of his constituents was murdered in his own constituency yesterday. So it is dramatically different. Now, the former Chief Constable has said that so far as he is concerned, much of the film is inaccurate. But it would certainly be a perfectly valid point for Sir John Herman or any other Chief Constable to make when explaining the position in Northern Ireland to a Chief Constable or a Deputy Chief Constable who has come from Great Britain, that the position in Northern Ireland is different. And I may just add this, that even as we are sitting here, I think it is very important that we try to understand what was in the minds, in my opinion, legitimately in the minds of those police officers in Northern Ireland on these occasions.
But surely the central point here is that you have juxtaposed right throughout the film is a difference of ethic within policing. You have the Stalker ethic, which by and large represents the ethic of policing in England, Scotland and Wales. And you have a different ethic as represented by Sir John Herman and Flanagan in that film. An ethic which has been bred in a very difficult situation in the north of Ireland. I went to see the police the following morning after the Seamus Greene Roddy Carroll incident. I was told by the Chief Superintendent and the Superintendent in charge of that area that it was a routine operation. Now, they were man enough to come and apologise to me later and say they didn't know. Now, those were the men in charge of policing in that area who didn't know what was happening.
Right. Can I put some of the points, though, that Seamus Mallon has raised to you, David Trimble? I mean, the question of, are there two different ethics, two different ways of doing things? And was John Stalker naive to expect that he could conduct an inquiry in Northern Ireland in the same way that he could have in Greater Manchester?
He was extremely naive. He was clearly a fool. That has to be said. There are not two ethics.
Why a fool?
There is very clear integrity running through policing in Northern Ireland. Where he was foolish was in not appreciating particularly the sensitivity of intelligence matters relating to terrorism. We were dealing here with issues of life and death, where you had agents, not just informers, agents inside terrorist organisations who had to be there. And it was quite legitimate to try and place agents inside terrorist organisations. And they absolutely had to be protected.
But are you saying that he should not have pursued an inquiry properly, asked all the questions that needed to be asked of the right people?
That's no problem with that.
But then he had to ask the questions you're talking about.
But there comes a point, and this is where he should have realised, that when you're moving into the area of intelligence, you have to tread very carefully indeed. And John Stalker did not tread with the appropriate care. He went in foolishly. And he created the problems where the problems should not have arisen.
You mean he didn't know when to back off?
David, you know that the problem didn't arise until it came to the question of the tapes in the Ballinary Heshed.
It's the questions of intelligence.
And those tapes were not all UC tapes, they were MI5 tapes. And once it got into the MI5 realm, once it was seen that authorisation for that had to come from the top politically in Britain,
because the intelligence, you're right.
I'm going to move to Peter Kosminski on this issue. David Trimble has said that he feels that John Stalker was naive in not understanding the way he should have conducted his investigation and the sensitivity of certain sources of information. Do you think he was a fool?
Well, sadly, he went further, as you say, and he called him a fool, and John Stalker isn't here to answer for himself, so I'll be a very poor substitute for him. John Stalker was not and is not a fool, nor was John Thorburn, his deputy. They are extremely able and intelligent people, and frankly, I would request that you withdraw that allegation against them. What they do...
Well, having asked him, do you want to? No, he doesn't. No. Okay, go on.
Well, I regret that. I think there's no need to descend to the level of personal abuse. He disagrees with you.
And personal abuse is a judgment.
Well, all right, it's not one I personally accept. I think Stalker has a view which a lot of people in this country share, and for what it's worth, after 3 years of investigation, I share, which is that it is not foolish to feel that there should be a difference of approach between the terrorist and the forces of law and order in a state. And frankly, although the forces of law and order in the state are under maximum pressure in Northern Ireland, and they're under a great deal of pressure on the mainland here now as we speak, with the outrages that have taken place perpetrated by the IRA here on the mainland and in Germany and on the continent. That is the time when they have to exercise maximum restraint. That is the time when they have to look to their moralistic laurels. Now, that may sound po-faced and rather sanctimonious, but it is the measure, it is the way in which outsiders judge our civilization, the way we hang on to the tenets of our civilization under maximum stress. If John Stalker felt that to be the case and said so, and that makes him a fool, I'm a fool, and I'm with Stalker too.
Can I move, Ian Gow, to one of the points that John Stalker did raise? And it was a concern about the use of informants, the worry that sometimes by using informants, they can end up using you, and they can end up becoming agent provocateur. How can one organize the use of informants, or is there a way in which one can organize it so that they don't end up
Well,
using
you could never be absolutely certain about that.
So what's the answer?
And, well, you can only, as the policeman on the ground, make the best judgment that you can in the light of all the training and knowledge and experience which you have had. And certainly, the use of informers has always been a particularly delicate and difficult matter of judgment by the police concerned, and particularly so in Northern Ireland. I just want to add one point. I think there is no basic difference in ethics between the Royal Ulster Constabulary and
Right.
police forces over here. What there is in Northern Ireland is a dramatic difference in danger and risk.
Right.
That is the difference.
Right. Larry Cox, on the question quickly of informants, is there any way in which they can be used but do not end up acting either as agent provocateur or using the very forces who are using them?
I'm sure there are ways that can be used, but the use of informants can never justify the kind of violation of basic human rights that we saw in the film.
Right.
That's the danger. Once you get into this murky area where in the name of national security, in the name of secrecy, in the name of fighting terrorism, you allow yourself to begin to violate human rights, you not only don't defeat terrorism, you begin to contribute to it, you begin to spread it, you begin to fuel it, and you begin to help the very people that you're supposed to be
A quick question to you, because we're coming towards the end. Lessons learned from this whole affair, reforms that should be put into operation. What do you think?
Well, the first lesson that has to be learned from this affair is that you must follow the very basic minimum international standards when there's a killing of this kind or killings of this kind, which means there must be a thorough, prompt, impartial investigation, and the facts must be made known. If the facts had been made known, we wouldn't be sitting here having this debate. We would know what happened. We wouldn't rely on a television film to tell us the truth. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And if this film is correct, let me finish. If this film is correct, and what happened on the film happened in reality, there must be a judicial inquiry into it in order to stop it from happening again.
David Trimble, and I want to get everybody else in on a final say, lessons learned.
The lesson that was learned was that the system worked, the facts became known, thanks to the way in which the Northern Ireland authorities operated. They became known before John Stalker came into the situation, and this film has not told the truth. It has told a lie.
But Ian Gow, mistakes were made.
Oh,
what
yes.
lessons can be learned?
Oh, yes, because the inquiry itself, the Stalker-Sampson inquiry, did find that there was evidence of a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice on the part of certain officers in the RUC. Now, that is inexcusable.
Right.
And it's quite wrong. And
Right.
the reason why we had the inquiry was so that we could learn the appropriate lessons, and those lessons have been learned by the present Chief Constable.
Seamus Mallon.
The final point is this. If there is going to be, if there is a necessity for an inquiry, then it should report to someone else other than the people, other than the people who are under investigation.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much. And these issues, of course, are going to be raised again and again in the context of Northern Ireland, and while they may not indeed be settled, they should be discussed. But that's all we've got time for tonight, so good night.
An exclusive to World Cup Plus on YTV. Friday's opening match with Argentina and Diego Maradona.